Hi, my name is Danny, and today I'm going to be explaining the operation of the CG4 panini machine. I'm going to start by explaining the 4 different parts of the machine. The first part of the machine is the divider, where the dough is divided by a rotating knife. The dough is placed on a conveyor here, where it goes through a set of 3 rollers, where it is pressed down to a desired thickness, and then it is cut off by a rotating knife. The dough exits on these split conveyors, which can be moved to one single conveyor or split apart to be separate. The dough enters the molding head, where it is pressed, and the rolling begins. Once it is rolled, it drops down onto the main molding table, which contains a pressure plate here, which can be raised or lowered to achieve your final length. Once the dough exits the pressure plate, it drops into this catch pan. On the CG4, we have an optional side discharge conveyor. The conveyor entering the bread molder can be raised up, and the pieces can drop directly on the side exit conveyor to feed into a bagel machine, or if you're doing ciabatta, it can just be placed on pans. This particular machine has an optional flour sifter, which can be used when you're processing a stickier dough or ciabatta dough. The sifter is controlled by an on-off switch here, and it has a variable speed control, which rotates a drum here, dropping the flour on the product. This machine has an overall production rate, which controls the speed of the entire machine, and it has a control for the size, which determines your piece length. This controls the on-off of the molding section. This switch here controls the on-off of this divider. You have an emergency stop located here and on the rear of the machine. Once the dough exits here, it goes into the molder. You have a control here which determines the thickness of the dough when it presses through the steel rollers, which is indicated by a reference number here. Once the dough passes through the steel rollers and it's pressed to your desired thickness, it goes between the 2 molding felt belts. The distance between the 2 molding felt belts is determined by this reference number and is controlled here. You have a handle here which controls a bar inside the belt, which gives the belt more tension. Once the piece exits, it drops down here, goes under a belt, and you get to a molding plate here. Your piece length can be determined by lowering this molding plate. Once it exits here, it gets its desired length, drops into this catch pan. On the other side of the machine, you have a clutch mechanism which can disconnect the top molding felt belt, which you can use if you're doing pizza doughs, pizza crust. The piece will just get sheeted and come out here. And it's just on or off. At the rear of the machine you have a cover which can be removed, exposing the rotating knives. You have an option of having a double knife to do smaller pieces, up to about 7-8 ounces. And we have also a single knife, which can do up to about an 18-ounce piece. To change the knife is a very simple operation. There's a safety pin here, which just gets pulled. The handle on the side here is spring-loaded, gets pulled, and the knife is removed. The knife has a larger end and a smaller end, so there's no confusion which way it goes in. And it's keyed here. Springs back in. Place the pin back in, and that's it. The handle in the back controls the distance of the rollers that are pressing the dough from the drum, which achieves your final dough thickness when it exits the divider. When feeding the dough into the machine, you should press it down, get it a little bit flat, and cut it to the approximate width of the input conveyor. We're just doing a small piece for demonstration purpose, but you can put a piece in as long as the conveyor. Push it in, start the molding, and then start the divider, and the piece will start entering the machine. Dough gets pressed by the rollers, comes around the drum, gets cut off by the rotating knife. Pieces exit the conveyors and come out rectangular, but we want to make a shorter piece, so we use these turning devices to flip them around. They enter the steel rollers where they're pressed, go through the molding belts where they end up rolled. It will drop down on the molding belt, the final molding belt, where it will go under the molding plate, which can stretch it out to any desired length you want by pressing it down more. And they end up exiting into the catch peg. For the 1.2 ounce pieces that we were just making, I had the size set at 13. Now I'm going to bump it up to 35, and we're going to try to make approximately a 4 ounce piece. The numbers here are only a reference number from 00 to 99, and they have no indication of weight. As you can see now, on the setting 35, the pieces are coming out longer. I'm still using the turning devices to turn them. They're getting pressed in here. I had to open it up a bit for the larger piece. They're getting molded back here. And then they're passing under the table, just getting them to the final piece length. As you can see, we've changed it to the single knife, which will give us much larger pieces for doing sub buns or up to a 24-inch baguette. When you're using the single knife and doing the larger pieces, you want to move these turners out of the way and put the conveyors together. Ready? So you can see it cutting here, going through the whole process, and exiting here right here. This length can be changed by raising or lowering this plate. You raise the plate, you'll get a shorter, thicker piece. You lower it down, you'll get a longer, thinner piece. If you wanted to use only the divider alone to scale the pieces to feed a bagel machine or to use as a ciabatta divider, you raise the safety guard, pull the knob, and the conveyor moves out of the way. Then you have to switch it from molder to conveyor over here. And the conveyor over. Hold on. As you can see now, instead of the pieces going into the molder, they will drop down on the side exit conveyor and drop out to pans or to another machine. By lowering the plate enough, you can even get the bread thin enough to make breadsticks or torellis or any variety of products like a challah or twist rolls. Here's just a small sample of some of the wide variety of products that the CG4 can produce. This machine has 4 safeties on it. First one is a limit switch on this front cover. If it's touched or moved, it will shut off the entire machine. You have an emergency stop push button on the front of the machine here. You have another emergency stop push on the back. And you have a limit switch, which the machine will not operate if the rear cover is removed. Before any cleaning or maintenance of the machine is performed, which should always be unplugged, in the rear of the machine you have a catch tray, which catches the small dough scraps from the cutting. This can be just shaken out, washed, wiped down with soap and water. Stop. The areas around the knife and the conveyors here can just be cleaned with a nylon brush. You should never use any metallic objects to clean any of the drums, knives, or scrapers. If you want to clean the knife, you can remove it and just clean it with regular soap and water. The only real maintenance this machine requires is periodical greasing of the chains, which are located behind this cover, on the opposite side, behind the same cover, behind this cover, behind the opposite side of the same cover, and under here there's 2 main drive chains. They're easily removed by 4 Phillips screws, and here you have 3 small Allen head screws. Any type of food-approved lubricant can be used on these chains. The products in operation we have shown you today is just a small fraction of the machine's capability. It is only limited to the user's imagination.